Bagaman meron ng Batas Republic Act 7877 or Anti-Sexual Harassment Act of 1995, nakita po ng mambabatas na limitado po lamang ang saklaw na lugar tulad ng workplace, schools at training institution ang mga lugar na nasasakupan. Bukod po dito, ang pwedeng mang-abuso ay mga kasama sa trabaho na may otoridad, impluwensya o mas nakakataas ang posisyon o yung may moral ascendancy. Ito yung mga posibleng offender ay babae at lalaki lamang. Ngayon ay mas komprehensibo, mas malawak ang nasasakupang lugar at sinumang tao, anuman ang kanyang kasarian, ibig sabihin kung saan niya ina-identify sa social norm ang kanyang sarili, kagaya ng mga lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender na tinatawag na kabilang sa LGBT ay pinoproteksyonan din. Kaya't ating alamin ang batas bilang 11313 Safe Spaces Act na tinaguriang Anti-Bastos Law. It is an act defining gender-based sexual harassment in streets, public spaces, online, workplaces, and educational or training institution, providing protective measures and prescribing penalties. Thereof, ang Batas 11313 ay nag-take effect noong August 3, 2019. Layunin ng batas na ito na wakasan ang kultura ng pambabastos saan mang lugar sila naroon, sapagkat iginagala ng Estado ang dignidad at karapatan ng bawat tao. Binigyan din ng karampatang kaparusahan ang bawat aksyon ng gender-based violence upang makamit ang hustisya at magdusa ang sinumang nagkasala sa batas na ito. Mga pampublikong lugar kung saan pwedeng maganap ang gender-based sexual harassment or GBSH: roads, kalye, streets and alleys, mga eskinita, sidewalks and parks, schools, training institutions, buildings, malls, bars and clubs, resorts and water parks, restaurants and cafe, recreational spaces like cinemas, theaters and spas, public washroom, public markets, transportation terminals, evacuation center, government offices, public and private utility vehicles, hotels, casinos, churches, internet shops, and other privately owned places open to the public. Gender-based sexual harassment in streets and public spaces. Kinds of GBSH. Una, catcalling. Ito po yung pagbati na may sexual undertone katulad ng "Wow, sexy," na may paglabas pa ng dila. "You are so hot, babes. Ang kinis ng kutis. Ang sarap kurutin." Pangalawa, wolf whistling. Ito yung pagsipol, pagpito habang dumadaan o panunutsot. "How are you, sweetie pie?" Patatlo, cursing, rude sexual remarks. Example, "Bakla, may labit ka din, nakaipit lang." Pang-apat, leering and intrusive kissing. May mga pagtingin ng malaswa na may kasabay na pagkindat o paglalaway. Sabi nga, mapanghimasok o malagkit na titig. Pang-lima, taunting. Ito yung pang-aasar o pandilibak ng pagkatao. Halimbawa, "Hoy, di ka naman sexy, papansin ka lang, di mo bagay magbestida, labas ang muscle mo." Pang-anim, unwanted invitations. Example po nito ay yung pinipilit na patingnan ang mga poster na nakahubad, laging may phone calls, texts at messages, nagpupumilit na mag-meet up o mag-date. Pang-pito, misogynistic, transphobic, and homophobic sexist slur. Ito po yung may mga tao na di gusto o galit ang di sila komportable sa mga babae o transgender, kaya di makatarungan ang lumalabas sa bibig, binababoy o pinagtatawanan ang kanilang pagkatao, tulad ng pagsabi ng "Makati ang mga babae at talipandas, kadiri, mga baklang salot, mukhang aswang, impakta." Pangwalo, persistent unwanted comments on one's appearance. Ito po yung panlalait ng hitsura. Example nito ay yung pag-alimura, katulad ng mukha kang baboy, kamukha mo unggoy, mukha kang kabayo, at iba pa. Pangsiyam, relentless request for one's personal details. Walang tigil sa pangungulit, sa panghingi ng name, ng cellphone number, address, at iba pang impormasyon. Pang-sampo, words, gestures, or actions that ridicule on the basis of sex, gender, or sexual orientation. Ibig sabihin nito ay ang pangungutya na may mahalay na komento, lalo na sa mga kabilang sa LGBT community. Sinasabihan ng bakla, peke ang dede. Pang-11, persistent telling of sexual jokes. Ito yung malaswang istorya ng pagbibiro na nakaka-demoralize ng pagkatao. Example, magaling yan sa kama, malibog pa yan sa aso. Pang-12, use of sexual names such as manyak, rapist, higad, malibog, at etc. Pang-13, comments and demands or any statement that has made an invasion on a personal space or threatens the person's sense of personal safety. Example, go with me, I will make you happy. Be mine, no one can take away my love for you. Pero di naman sila magkakilala ng biktima. Penalties on GBSH. First offense shall be punished by a fine of 1,000 pesos and community service of 12 hours, inclusive to a gender sensitivity seminar. Second offense shall be punished by arresto minor, 6 to 10 days of imprisonment, and a fine of 3,000 pesos. Third offense shall be punished by arresto minor, 11 to 30 days of imprisonment, and a fine of 10,000 pesos. GBSH in streets and public spaces for acts such as making offensive body gestures at someone. First, flashing, exposing of private parts for the sexual gratifications of the perpetrator. Even po yung mga umiihi sa gilid ng kalsada at nang dumaan ng babae o LGBT ay ipinakita po ito. Second, public masturbation. Lantad po sa publiko yung kanyang ginawa. Third, groping and similar lewd sexual actions. Ito po yung pangangapa, paghipo, pagpisil sa biktima. All this GBSH has effect of demeaning, harassing, threatening, or intimidating the offended party. Penalties. First offense shall be punished by a fine of 10,000 pesos and community service of 12 hours, inclusive of attendance to a gender sensitivity seminar. Second offense shall be punished by arresto minor, 11 to 30 days, and a fine of 15,000 pesos. Third offense shall be punished by arresto mayor, 1 month to 1 day to 6 months, a fine of 20,000 pesos. GBSH in public streets and public spaces for acts such as stalking when accompanied. To shed lights kung ano ba yung stalking, ibig sabihin ay madalas na makitang pagsusubaybay o paglapit sa biktima na hindi naman pinagkasunduan. Kung kaya't ito ay nagdudulot ng pagkatakot, pagkabalisa at pagbabanta sa kanyang kaligtasan. Bunga nito, ang biktima ay nakakaranas ng emotional distress. Touching, pinching, brushing against any parts of the body like genitalia, face, arms, anus, breast, buttocks, inner breast, etc. Penalties. First offense shall be punished by arresto minor or a fine of 30,000 pesos, including attendance to gender sensitivity seminar. Second offense shall be punished by arresto mayor, 1 month to 1 day to 6 months, and a fine of 50,000 pesos. Third offense shall be punished by arresto mayor in its maximum period and a fine of 100,000 pesos. Gender-based online sexual harassment. It is an act that uses information and communication technology. This can be telephones and radio equipment, computers using internet. These are being used in terrorizing and intimidating the victims either through physical, psychological, and emotional threat. Ang sexual harassment ay ginagawa sa pamamagitan ng pag-generate o paglikha, pag-send at pag-process ng electronic data and messages. Unwanted sexual, misogynistic, transphobic, homophobic, and sexist remarks and comments online, whether publicly or through direct and private messages. Example, pinagsasabihan ng babaeng haliparot gamit ang Facebook or Messenger. Invasions of victims' privacy through cyberstalking and incessant messaging, uploading, and sharing without the consent of the victim. Nakakairita dahil walang humpay na pagmemensahe at pag-share sa iba ng mga mensahe na walang pahintulot. Any forms of media that contains photos, voice, or video with sexual content, pwedeng mga mahahaling na larawan, lewd wallpapers, or nude calendar. Any unauthorized recording and sharing of any of the victim photos, voicemail, videos with sexual content, or any information online. Example, nasa beach ang biktima at nakatupis lamang. Then, in-upload ang picture at shinare niya sa iba without the permissions of the victim. Other example is when a sex video is being spread without the consent. Impersonating identities of victims online or posting lies about victims that could harm their reputation. Self-explanatory po ito at kadalasang ginagawa. Filing false abuse reports to online platforms to silence the victims. Ipagkakalat ko ang pagnalalaki mo para patayin ka ng asawa mo. Penalties for GBSH online. The penalties of prison correctional in its medium period are a fine of not less than 100,000 pesos but not more than 500,000 pesos or both. At the discretions of the court shall be imposed upon any person found guilty of gender-based sexual harassment. If the perpetrator is juridical or corporate person, its license or franchise shall be automatically deemed revoked. Persons liable shall be the editor or reporter in the case of the print media, the station manager, editor, and broadcaster in the case of the broadcast media. In case po na may sangkot na foreigner, an alien shall be subject to deportations proceeding after serving sentence and payment of fines. Qualified gender-based streets, public spaces, and online sexual harassment. The penalty next higher in degree will be applied in the following cases. First, if the act takes place in public utility vehicles, including but not limited to jeepneys, taxis, tricycles, or app-based transportations, network vehicle services, where the driver is the perpetrator and the offended party is a passenger. In addition to the penalties of this act, the Land Transportation Office or LTO may cancel the license of the perpetrator. Moreover, the Land Transportation Franchise and Regulatory Board may suspend or revoke the franchise of transportation operators who committed the GBSH Act. Usually, ang pambabastos na nangyayari sa loob ng sasakyan. Ang driver ay pinupokus ang salamin sa dibdib ng babae, particular na yung nakasuot ng flying neckline o kaya naman ay sa hita ng babae na nakashort, nakapalda or dress. Gayun din ang driver o di kaya ang kapapasahero naman ay mayroong nananadyang idikit ang braso sa katabi na abot ang dibdib ng babae. Yung sinasadyang pagdanggil sa puwet kapag magkakadikit na nakapila sa pagsakay o pagbaba ng sasakyan. Second, if the offended party is a minor, a senior citizen, or a person with disability or breastfeeding mother nursing her child. Third, if the offended party is diagnosed with a mental problem tending to impair consent. Fourth, if the act take place in the premises of a government agency offering frontline services to the public and the perpetrator is a government employee. Fifth, if the perpetrator is a member of the uniformed service such as Armed Forces of the Philippines, which covers the 4 branches: the Philippine Army, the Philippine National Police, the Philippine Air Force, and the Philippine Navy. Gender-based sexual harassment in the workplace, school, and training institutions. Series of acts involving any unwelcome sexual advances, request or demand for sexual favors, whether granted or not. Example that are happening are: there are supervisors who demand for sex in exchange for hiring an applicant for a job, offering promotion, raise salary, or be given special privileges and benefits like priority in attending seminars abroad. Crime of GBSH may be committed vice versa, between peers, to a superior officer by a subordinate, to a teacher by a professor by a student, to a trainer or a coach by a trainee. Typical example of GBSH in schools or training institutions. First, demand his student for a massage their hands and wash their bodies. Demand student to see nude photos. Asked for sex in exchange to pass the subject or earn high grades. Grant an award, honor, or scholarship, or be given special benefits and privileges like exemption to take written examination or be given stipend or allowance. Duties of offices, schools, and training institution. First, provide measure to prevent GBSH, like productions of educational modules, awareness campaigns through posters, infographics of hotline numbers of authorities. Second, create a committee on decorum or COD to investigate and address complaints of GBSH within 10 days or less. Third, observe due process. Fourth, protect the complainant from retaliation. Fifth, guarantee confidentiality from stage of investigation, prosecutions, and trials. 6. Set administrative penalties like if found guilty, the educational institutions have the right to strip his diploma or issue an expulsion order. Exemption to act constitute and generalize as GBSH but cannot be penalized. First, authorized written order of the court or any peace officer to use the online records or any copy thereof as evidence in any civil, criminal investigations or trial of the crime. Second, acts that are legitimate expression on indigenous culture and tradition. Example of this are katutubong mga Aita at Igorot who are men are wearing bahag as their normal outfit. Third, breastfeeding practice in public places. Steps in filing legal cases for GBSH. First, report the incidents of GBSH to local police authorities, the PNP, especially the Women and Children Desk. If possible, present the witness and substantial evidence. Second, making CCTV footage available when ordered by court. Third, file the case within the prescribed time period, 3 years for GBSH in the workplace.